This is the ocean, and this is a cow. What connections do the ocean and the cow have? Methane. As you may or may not know, cows release methane through burps and farts. While having a lot of methane released into the atmosphere is not a good thing, it also doesn't last as long in the atmosphere. What does last a while in the atmosphere is carbon dioxide, CO2. Cows release carbon dioxide, whereas oxidized in the atmosphere, becoming carbon dioxide in the process. Note that carbon dioxide is absorbed by photosynthesis and converted into carbohydrates like corn and grass that is subsequently eaten by. The rest of the carbon dioxide goes up in the atmosphere and remains for a very long time or into the oceans, where it contributes to ocean acidification. Cows are used for milk and milk products, steaks, and of course hamburgers. Hamburger alternatives have become quite popular nowadays. If you've only ever eaten cow-based burgers, I'm sure you've heard of products such as vegetable burgers or meatless burgers. 3 such alternatives to cow-based burgers I will be discussing today are vegetable burgers, anchovy burgers, and hybrid burgers. First, I shall talk about vegetable burgers. As you can see, the average burger typically has 17.51 grams of protein, 14.38 grams of total fat, 20.68 grams of carbohydrates, about 0.7 grams of fiber, 208 kilocalories of energy, and they use 45.69 grams of water. U.S. Department of Agriculture Food Data Central 2023. By comparison, potato protein PBBs, plant-based burgers, which are composed of 4 different compositions of a set list ingredients, have, at their highest amounts, an average of about 22.35 grams of protein, average of about 10.46 grams of fat, and average of about 11.16 grams of carbohydrates, an average of about 8.94 grams of fiber, and an average of about 254.45 kilograms of energy. President's Law et al. 2024. Another table shows that there is an average of about 24.5 grams of water used for the PBBs. Of course, those averages are at their highest numbers, so that actual numbers overall could end up being much less than those averages. As for the reason behind plant-based burgers being created, according to President's Law et al., due to the amount of cows present on Earth, there are more methane emissions and environmental impacts like water pollution, deforestation, and desertification, but in turn, cow meat provides essential minerals such as zinc and iron. President's Law et al. 2024. Another potential plant-based burger alternative is pea protein burgers. According to Penaranda et al., pea-based burgers mixed with lucerne, spinach, and chlorella have good texture and sensory properties comparable with regular hamburgers, as well as a better retention of water. Penaranda et al. 2023. This means that these pea-based burgers burn less compared to regular hamburgers. On to the next alternative. There's many reasons people eat hamburgers. They taste good, they provide protein, they're usually fats, and make them relatively cheap. However, they also come with the downsides of causing heart problems if too many of them are consumed. They can also be quite fattening. Anchovies are probably not the first thing you think of when you think about burgers, but anchovies and fish in general can have relatively high amounts of protein while not necessarily being as fatty. Russo et al. Also note that anchovies have little impact on the environment, making them much more environmentally friendly compared to cows. Russo et al. 2025. However, in the same article, Russo et al. Note that water loss from denaturation of proteins does impact fish products. Hence, researchers using fiber and potato flakes also have improve the texture of the anchovy burgers. Mentioning that a mixture that contains 4% potato flakes and fiber, with their 96% being anchovy, retains 75.59% of its moisture. Russo et al. 2025. Assuming that 75.59% moisture can be applied to 100 grams of burger, that just the anchovy and potato flake and fiber burgers have about 75.59 grams of moisture onto the final alternative. Hybrid burgers are an interesting alternative to regular hamburgers. They usually combine a meat or protein source with some form of vegetable or fiber. One example is some mackerel and seaweed burgers. Carlos Cardoso and a few other researchers created a burger made from 70.43% mackerel, 15.73% quinoa, 0.5% seaweed, among other things. With the control of the experiment being the nutritional value derived from 4 different means of cooking or not cooking the burger: raw, steamed, roasted, and grilled. Cardoso et al. 2024. Raw mackerel has 68.5 grams of moisture, 22.7 grams of protein, 7.22 grams of lipids, 0.20 grams of, and 157 kilocalories of energy. Boiled quinoa by itself has 8.2 grams of moisture, 2.7 grams of protein, 0.27 grams of lipids, 6.63 grams of carbohydrates, and 8 kilocalories of energy. Averaging amounts of moisture, protein, carbohydrates, and energy presented combined of raw chopped mackerel and boiled quinoa shows that these hybrid burgers can provide 74.35 grams of moisture, 12.7 grams of protein, 3.75 grams of lipids, 8.42 grams of carbohydrates, and 108.5 kilocalories of energy. There's also an option combining turkey meat with red beans to form a hybrid meat product, as noted by an article written by Margolca Karwalska and a few other researchers. Although the article is not necessarily about hybrid burgers, the idea of using turkey and red beans to make hybrid meat suggests of a product made from 100% turkey and 0% beans. Said sample has 70.11% moisture, 90.09% protein, 0.11% fat, 1.69% salt, and 0.9% collagen. Karwaska et al. 2025. Although only a sample, if these percentages are able to be compared to grams per 100 grams without many differences in the blood percentages compared to grams, then that could suggest the potential advantage of gaining protein from turkey meat alone. Using the data metrics I gathered from my own research, plant burgers, specifically potato protein burgers, can have up to 22.53 grams of protein, nearly 5 more grams of protein compared to the average hamburger. Plant-based burgers also contain only 10.46 grams of fat on average, 4 grams less fat than regular hamburgers, and that's at its highest amount. The lesser amount of fat can make it a more viable option for people who are seeking to eat foods with less fat. Plant burgers also contain over 9 less grams of carbohydrates and nearly 13 times more fiber than an average hamburger. But 21 less grams of moisture are present, which can affect taste and texture of the burgers. The biggest downside to plant burgers is that they have less energy than normal hamburgers, about 38 kilocalories less. By comparison, anchovy burgers only have a little more protein than standard hamburgers, much less fat content and an unknown number of carbohydrates, less fiber, more moisture, and an unknown amount of energy compared to plant burgers. Mackerel and quinoa and turkey meat, meanwhile, provide less energy and protein but also have less fat. Overall, I think plant-based burgers, specifically potato protein burgers, are the best alternative to regular hamburgers. Not only do they provide more protein and energy with less fat, but potatoes are a lot more sustainable and can be grown almost anywhere, with some potatoes even being able to sprout roots to reach dirt for wherever they can find it. Potatoes are also prevalent in quite a few areas of the world, which makes them a relatively cheap, viable option for hamburger alternatives. Anchovy burgers are probably the next best choice of alternative, although I do worry that overfishing could become a major factor of anchovies if there was a sudden switch from calorie to anchovies for burgers. Mackerel and quinoa can also have issues with overfishing or overharvesting like anchovies, and farm-raised turkeys can have a lot of the same problems cows have when it comes to environmental impact, especially in terms of space needed for a farm. However, turkey meat is about as common as cow meat and would probably be one of the first things people start using as an alternative if cow meat is no longer available for use. Still, plant-based burgers are a way to go if you want to be more environmentally conscious and also get enough nutrition and energy.